Welcome back, everybody, to another podcast, League of Inches podcast. It's a bit of a special one. We did it obviously last week with the finals week 2 preview. This week is the grand final qualifiers, finals week 3 preview. Two huge clashes. Myself and Trav, are going to have a chat about things. First of all, off the back of the breaking news, we are recording this Thursday night around the 8:30 mark. We're still wrapping our heads around it. Kevin Walters has been sacked as head coach from the Brisbane Broncos. Huge news. Not many seen it coming in this time frame anyway. It seemed to have been the Broncos were going to look at backing him for one more year and see how the opening part of the season went. But being confirmed, a 3-week deep dive, I guess, into their season has come back, and they've decided to part ways with Kevin Walters. He has lost. He hasn't made finals 3 out of the 4 times so far as being head coach. And I personally think the writing was on the wall with this one. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I just don't really rate him as a coach. I know that sounds harsh. He got him to the grand final just 12 months ago. But at the same time, look at the playing group they had. Look at what happened. And I don't know. I think he's been a man under pressure a lot this year, and I think he's felt it. And I don't think he's reacted the best to that pressure. He's been very snappy, very snarky, and it's not the Kevin Walters that I think a lot of people are seeing, at least on the cameras, known that sort of thing. But Trav, I'll get your thoughts around it, and we'll talk a little bit into this, and we'll get into our preview. Obviously, big breaking news in the NRL world. Thoughts about it? It was a bit of a shock. Put in the chat, and everyone was like, "Whoa."
Yeah, I was one of them. I'm a bit lost for words. I am a bit shocked by it. Look, it literally only happened 15 minutes ago in the announcement. I still sort of trying to fathom it. I'd be keen to read about it a little bit more over the next few days. My initial thoughts are that I'm quite shocked at the timing. I just think it's very odd. I get that they've had to do a bit of a deep dive and a full review of their club. And obviously in the review, it's come back as, he's one of the big problems. And so they've got rid of him. I just think it's odd, 24 hours out from the first game of the prelims, 3 weeks after the season, 2 days after the announcement of the agreement with Walsh. I just think it's really odd timing to do it. I think, I do get that you've got to do the reviews, but and let all that play out. But I just think this is a really odd timing to do it. But that's where that's what they've done and how it's come out. I also do agree. I think he was a poor coach. I think a lot of shit happened this year though, in the last sort of 9 months that are a bit out of his control. Like there's been a lot of injuries. Haas major injury, Reynolds out for a lot of the year, Walsh out for a lot of the year. The rubbish that happened in America. I think that Vegas trip really was the beginning domino of the domino effect of rolling everything out to get him out. I think all of that stuff that happened in the off season there. I think all the stuff that's happened with, and as much as positivity that we gave Payne Haas and what's happened with him and his family, I think that's a big effect and has played a big effect in the club. So there's a lot that's happened to him that's out of his control. And I think he's been made to be a bit of a scapegoat. But in terms of like on-field stuff, 3 out of 4 finals period, non-final showing. One of them was a grand final that they were that close to winning. That's my sort of initial thoughts.
I feel like there's a lot, like the on-field stuff you've pointed out. I think there's a lot of the off-field stuff that they've come back and realised, I don't think Kevy's the man for the job. And what I mean by that, obviously the pre-season, the fight between Carrigan and Reynolds got very, very heated, got over the top. Don't see that happen at most clubs in the NRL these days.
Not with dudes at their caliber.
What was that?
Not with dudes at their caliber and leadership.
Yeah, 100%. And then obviously we've all heard the reports at training, the playing group. There's a lot of these players who basically think they're bigger than the club in a way at the moment, walking around like they're untouchable. And that's probably comes back to the leadership. They don't, in a way, respect the leadership. look back at the last couple of years where there was a few of those players did some podcasts and stuff and effectively bagged him for not being a great coach. And that doesn't just sugarcoat itself and go and fix itself overnight. That's going to stick around. They may have patched things up man to man, but those comments are always going to sit there, especially to board members and stuff, and they'll always be back of their mind going, oh, maybe there's some truth to this sort of, they're getting away with a lot more, the players, than we think they should be. And this makes me think to do this now, and I agree the timing, I think it's a bit tactical because we spoke about it off air. It was funny. NRL 360 had just finished. They're not allowed to talk about it then. They're off air. Great timing for that. All those big shows and that are all basically done for the week. All the big podcasts and that are done. So there's not going to be much to talk about it over the next 3 days or so because then the NRL finals start tomorrow or today when you're listening to this. So very tactical, very smart in a way, very, very slimy, I think, because it gets him out of the public eye. But I no doubt next week this will be a big talking point. I know it'll be grand final week, but we know what the media are like now. They love this sort of stuff. This will take a lot of headlines away. This also makes me think there's got to be a coach out there who's not got a job, or maybe he has a job, I don't know, that must be standing out to the Broncos that have already had some chats to and sounded someone out, because Kevy Walters didn't do that bad of a job that he was literally needed to be pushed out the door right now, and he needs to go. Like, he, for mine, probably warranted at least to start next year to see what was happening. But there's something happening in the background that surprisingly, not many people know about. Normally there's a lot of leaks out of the Broncos the last couple of years, but there's nothing now. Anyone at the top of your radar that you think about? For me, like, there's people out there talking about maybe Brad Arthur comes back from England. I don't know if that's the job for him. I think Michael Maguire would be a huge one. And I've heard him speak in a couple of podcasts. He seems to have really pinpointed some of the issues at the Broncos, and it took a lot of time to look into that club. I think that club needs a big man manager, a guy that of Madge's sort of quality, that's very full on, very serious character, and the players know where they sit straight away, and he will literally pull all that crap back. And they don't like it, see you later, tough love type coach. But that's probably what this playing group needs. So I straight away look at it and think Madge is my top of the pile pick. But then obviously the background of that is the Blues job. He's got the Blues job for another 12 months. Seems to be doing great things there. Does he want to go for that? He has said previously that he wants to go again, but we all know he also wants to be a full-on week in, week out NRL club coach and handle everything. He wants to be in control. So it's a tough one. He's probably my top pick, but what about yours, Trav? Anyone point out to you?
Not initially, no. I don't really know. I agree with you though. That's a list that definitely needs an incredibly well respected, tough decision. People going to listen maker. So I think that rules out a lot of your rookie coaches, a lot of your sort of younger coaches, even coaches that have probably failed at other roles. I think that probably narrows it down. I think you hit the nail on the head. The fact is that they've done this review. They've done it now. Just screams like they've got someone already lined up. I think that it just screams that to me. So I think you're on a winner there. There's going to be something that comes out, but I don't have an initial person. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure who's actually wants to be there and who wants to be coaching at the moment. There hasn't been a lot of news around coaches and who's putting their hand up and what they're doing. So it'll be interesting to see. That's unlike years past where there are jobs that have been put up. There are interviews. There are coaches saying, I want jobs. Like, this has been a quiet year.
It's an interesting time because obviously expansion's on the horizon as well, and there's a lot of coaches out there who might be free or looking at those jobs and eyeing them off and saying, I want them. And if they do get those jobs, they're going to need a year or two to plan for that as well. So that also weighs into someone like Brad Arthur, who has been very vocal, and it looks like he's the ideal candidate for the Perth Bears franchise. For mine, if he is to get that job, he probably needs to start that job from next year and really build into that squad, sell the venture to new players, signing. So he won't have the time to be a Brisbane Broncos coach, even if it's for a short term. It's going to be too much of a full-on job to get those franchises up. Anyway, we are
Perth or Papua New Guinea, yeah.
So yeah, it'll be Perth, the 18th, I reckon. Then 19th will be Papua New Guinea, and then we're just waiting on the 20th team, which might be a second New Zealand team if the rumours are correct.
And they're only a few years out, so yeah, I mean you're right. Yeah, and to be honest, I don't think Brad Arthurs is the right man for that list. Like,
no.
So I would say if I was him, I wouldn't even bother putting my hand up. Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I'm keen to see how it all plays out. I'm keen to see who starts putting their hand up. I'd love to know if likes of Cameron Smith, if Billy Slater, if Jonathan Thurston, if some of these commentators start to put their hand up that have been doing and been around the Origin arena with assistant coaching and coaching roles. I'd be very confident that a Billy Slater won't, but I think he's passionate about his Queensland Origin and his media duties, but there are plenty of other boys out there.
Certainly. We will keep everyone up to date with the page, so make sure you give us a like, give us some follows, keep you up to date with what is going on, all the rumours, etc. What we are here for is the Grand Final qualifiers. Really two massive games. The top four teams are battling it out to reach the grand final, the big dance, as I like to say. First game is tomorrow night. Tonight, I've got to keep saying tonight because that's when everyone will be listening. It's very hard, this podcasting stuff. The Melbourne Storm against the Sydney Roosters down there at Amy Park. A huge advantage in itself playing this game at Amy Park for the Melbourne Storm. Rightly deserved, but there's no denying it is a huge advantage, especially against the Roosters team. We all know the record. I'm not even going to keep saying the numbers because everyone has been told it to death, but they clearly struggle to beat not just the Penrith Panthers, but the Melbourne Storm as well. I just want to start with that straight away with you, Trav. I know you're a very passionate Melbourne fan, but that record in itself has been spoken about by everyone now. There's no hiding behind it. The Roosters players certainly would know about it. They try and block the media away, but it's a number. It's numbers that you just can't get away from.
No, you can't, can you? What is it? 21 out of 23 or something that's just recently popped up. So you can't get away from it. But they're professionals. It's a prelim. The Roosters just started to look like they've found form. Storm are already in form. I don't think they'll buy. I don't think it'll be spoken about. I don't think it sits on the whiteboard. I think it'll be, scratch past. I think it's more the media making stories out of things, and the media will ask with the ability to ask questions to the players to make a story out of it. I don't think it is a question that's on anyone's minds right now. It's more of a question for us to talk about in a podcast and for the media to say in 360. I think if they lose, it'll be brought up and it'll be a definite big thing with a hoodoo. But I think right now I don't think the Roosters really care at the moment about that sort of thing, and I don't think it actually plays in their mind or makes a big effect.
Yeah, no, I agree. If anything, if they have spoken about it, it probably provides them a bit more motivation to actually get it done and to shut everyone up because they're sick of hearing about it. And it has clearly got to a few of them, the coach and some of the players. Teddy, I know, snapped about it. I think it was in the lead up to the Panthers game. So they are getting a bit over it. They obviously have been talking about it, and I think they just want to shut everyone up about it. There's some big battles on the field with this one, and it starts all the way back to the fullbacks. And I'm really intrigued about this one because on one side of the fence, we've got a guy called Ryan Pappenhausen who has come back from a couple of really nasty injuries. Had some moments this year when he has been on the field where he looks like he's getting back to that former self. I don't know if he'll ever be that player just because of what his body has gone through, unfortunately. But if he can get close to that, he's still a very, very good player. On the flip side of that, he's also had some games where I just sort of go, in a way, it's probably working. It's on the back of his mind still, and he just isn't quite there. And that's not sort of the player you want coming into a must-win, obviously, grand final qualifier. But then on the other side of the fence, you've got James Tedesco, who I continue to have arguments with people online and on the page and stuff. And they laugh. And anytime you mention Teddy in rep footy still, they laugh if you say team of the year, etc. He is dead set going to be right in the Dally M thick of things of being the best player in the game this year. There is no doubt in my mind. And he has been top probably 2 or 3 players in this competition this year as well. You could probably make an argument for him being the best alongside Jerome Hughes, but our League of Inches Player of the Year, they actually drew in the end. So that shows you how good of a season they both had. But Teddy's been remarkable. I still am shocked that people can't see how good he's been this year. And I'm not a Roosters fan, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I love rugby league and I just respect those good players and I get to see it. And I respect that he's been down and out. He was last year, it looked like he was close to retirement, if I'm being honest. That's how far he fell away. And he's come back this year. And whether he's used it as motivation, he's used the Blues snubbing as motivation, I'm not sure. But whatever it's done, he just looks fresh as. He looks like he could go for another 3 or 4 years all of a sudden. And it's a battle that I think Teddy would win hands down at the moment if you're putting them both together. But what do you think of the battle? It's a hard one because then you ask the question: can the Storm just as a whole confine what damage Tedesco can do? It's very, very difficult to do that.
How mouthwatering is that matchup going to be? How mouthwatering is it to watch James Tedesco and see what he can do and how he can carry his team against us with the Storm, as the Storm fan, and what they can do against that. Yeah, I'm a Storm fan, but I'm also a rugby league fan. I'm going into this with the hope that the Storm win, and as a fan that I am, but I'm also here to do these sorts of work, and I'm not biased either. And far out, I'm excited to watch what Teddy can do on the weekend, and it freaking scares me as a supporter on the other side of it. He's been a monster this year, and everyone that sits there and talks about, I saw someone on the page today, say that he's one game Teddy, one game. What a stupid comment! Like, it doesn't. People just. I'm sorry, but what have you been watching this year? Like, he's been huge and literally has carried that team all the way through. And to be honest, it's pretty easy to carry that team when you've got a list full of guns like he's got. But doesn't that prove just how bloody good he is to be able to do what he's been able to do on a list that bloody good? It's just incredible. It's not like I'll make another argument or make another point against Jerome Hughes, right? So Jerome Hughes has had a huge year on the back of the fact that we've had so many injuries and so many things that he's had to navigate throughout the year. And so Jerome Hughes has had a big year. And therefore, because he's so good and had such a big year, it's become even bigger. Whereas Teddy's had to do what he's had to do with all of those names still being there. And the only time that he's really had anything to manage is when Walker got injured at the end of the year. So to me, that just screams unbelievable year. And he'd be a no-brainer for the Dally M if Jerome Hughes hadn't have done what he'd done this year. Now, I think Jerome Hughes wins the Dally M, but I wouldn't be disappointed if Teddy takes it in a whitewash. Like, it would make sense because he's been huge. Now, the question is the matchup between Teddy and Pappenhausen. To me, I think is Pappenhausen the way to stop Teddy? Because I don't think you can. I don't think we can stop Teddy. I think Teddy's going to have a field day. The issue is how big a field day is Teddy going to have, right? So, and how can we control him? And the best thing about the Storm is that we are a team defense. Like, we're one unit. We all move. We shift along. We talk. There's lots of communication. We've got the boys in the right spots at all times. There's not a lot of overlap. And there used to be, and at the start of the year, our biggest deficiency was Warbrick's edge, right? Now, I think Howarth has come through and absolutely shored up that edge. And Warbrick's defense next to Howarth has become elite. And I think that, and the numbers stack up against that now. Since about halfway through, once Howarth got there, I think the numbers have been well and truly in that edge as an elite defensive partnership. So there's no weaknesses. So the issue. So my question is, how do we stop him? And I actually think we fight fire with fire. I think we've got to, the ball's got to come through Pappenhausen. He's got to play, and he's got to do what Pappenhausen can do. And he started to show that. He started to show that in the last game when we flogged the Sharks, and he started to do that. I think he had a really good first 20 minutes before he got injured against the Cowboys, and he's been sort of building up to it. So this is what he's been playing this year for. This is why he's sort of taken that slow and steady approach to get through. This is what he's here for. And I think the way that we're going to stop Teddy is to make Pappenhausen be the best on the field.
Yeah, no, I agree. The other parts of this, it's funny how it works in together. The halves, Sandon Smith and Luke Keary had a tremendous game on the weekend after a lot of question marks were raised about their Penrith performance. It was funny to see just how different they looked once their forward pack gets them on the front foot, their team's on the front foot. They just had a lot more confidence. Really, just looked like they could breathe again as a halves combination. But they're up against probably the best halves pairing in the competition, it's fair to say. Munster and Jerome Hughes, which is just another completely different can of worms in its own self. I know the Penrith partnership's there. There's counter arguments for both. I don't want to get into the argument here, but this is a hugely different beast. So on the weekend, they were all over Manly. They're not going to have that this week. It's going to be more similar to the Penrith style of game plan, and that makes me think back to that. And just so I remember saying Sandon Smith just was almost non-existent for that game, and Luke Keary couldn't really control anything because his team was just getting bashed. And I don't think they'll get bashed to that extent because I think they'll be more physically up for this game with their leader Hargraves and Radley in. But it is a huge test. This is a different ball game.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, 100%. And the other side of that is that I think Hughes and Munster are now pretty much at the peak of what they can be this year. I think Munster's injury, whilst he knows that that's in the back of his mind, he knows that he's going for off-season surgery. I think he's pretty much healed. I think he's good enough to go. He showed that 2 weeks ago when he was almost best on ground. So, it's a whole different ball game. Munster and Hughes versus Keary and Smith. Geez, that doesn't sound good, does it? If you're a Roosters fan, like, it does not sound good. Just based on those numbers and based on those names and what the two pairings can do, it doesn't sound good. And that's going to be a really, really big play. Keary has to be the Keary of old, and Sandon Smith needs to be another step above what he did last week. So last week he was that sort of game manager. He sort of and we said this in the review that he had a good game. You know, he wasn't great. He wasn't bad. He had a good game. But he played his role, and that was his spot. That's what he had to do, right? When he needed to kick it, when he needed to, he did the right thing. When he needed to get the try, because that was the end of the play, he got the try. You know, he was there and did what he had to do. This week he can't do that. He's now got to take another step. My question is on that, and what happened last week is, did the Roosters fire early? You know, did they put all their eggs in that basket to get through to this game? And they did that last week. And, you know, are they going to be able to match that intensity? Are they going to be able to match that fierceness? Are they going to be able to match the discipline that they had last week to be like they were, and as fierce and as intense as they were, but yet didn't get punished for it, and there was no consequences for it within the game? So are they going to be able to match that this week against the Storm? Because they're going to have to take another step. They're going to have to match that and then take another step. And I don't think Hughes and Munster are going to allow them to.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. It's mouthwatering in terms of just how they both sets of halves handle the situation on the night. I want to talk about the wingers, and just to word, like, we're not going to go through every single positional battle here because it's pretty much all over the park. There's going to be stuff we do miss, players we miss, but just trying to get a gauge on. But I want to talk about the wingers because I'm going to come at this with the. I'm not going to steal your thunder here, Trav. I'll let you have your points, so I'm not going to go off and steal those ones. But I want to talk about it because we've got 4 of the best finishers in the game. They've been so clinical. Won multiple games for their teams throughout their careers so far, and they can just do some crazy finishes. That's one thing we love about them. I think just as important for these big game occasions is the work they're going to be doing out of their own end, the yardage game, and how much they'll help their forward packs and their halves, etc. Getting them on the front foot by that tough 1, 2, and 3 sort of carries and working in with the fullback as well. But that they've got to be mediators, and that they've shown that they can do that as well. It's going to be a very tiring game for wingers, I feel like, because there's going to be some good kicking games on show, and there's going to be a lot of work getting done with obviously a big finals game. Everyone's going to be up for the occasion. So, yep, they're great finishers, fantastic finishers. I can't wait to see some of the things, the work that they'll do tomorrow night. But I'm also looking forward to seeing who works harder, who's actually prepared to roll up the sleeves out of them and go, I'm going to do it for my team. I'm going to go up and get the work done. What are you looking at with the winger battle?
I think that's going to be freaking exciting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to watch the aerial battle, particularly. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, they are going to the kicking game of the Storm is elite, right? And anyone in that team, that gets the hand on the fifth tackle is going to be is a good kick. Munster's a great kick. Hughes is a great kick. Harry Grant can kick out of the ruck. Even Pappenhausen can kick the ball. Meany showed a few times this year that when needed or they get stuck because Hughes and Munster have wanted to make a play, he can do that too. So, the Storm kicking game is going to be a real challenge. And I think, which leads to that aerial battle. Warbrick and Coates are just by far and above the aerial masters in this competition. And it's freaking fun to watch, isn't it? Like the speckies and the things that both of those guys can do. And the lack of fear for their body and danger in that scenario where they can literally run with the head up in the sky and not care where anyone is and what they do and get above and get it is just, it's a blessing to watch. And as an NRL fan, it's exciting. Tupou and Young are no freaking scrubs in the aerial battle. And they're also nice big man. So that, it's going to be a really good defensive watch to see what they can do. I think Coates and Warbrick can stop Young and Tupou in their offensive aerial battle. I think that I think the other way around. Do I think Tupou and Young can stop them? I think one of the biggest issues that Young's got is that he's an atrocious defender, in my view. And so I don't know if he can. And I'm really keen to see that because I reckon Munster and Hughes are going to put it on Young's head and Tupou's head over and over and over and over again throughout that game.
It's a tantalizing battle, I guess, that sort of area. It's all over the park, like 80 minutes of nonstop of, I think, the edges just going at it and the wingers doing what they do best. But the typical rugby league storyline, we said it for a few weeks now and joke around about it. Forwards win the big games, especially finals football. And I want to talk about, we can talk about Eli Katoa up against Angus Crichton. That's mouthful. That's what a battle that will be. But I want to talk about the props, the big dogs. I'm talking about the big dogs of these packs. It's the Jared Ria-Hargraves up against Nelson Asafa-Solomona, and they don't like each other. That's been well reported. They want to be the alpha male. They want to be the top dog on not just for their teams, but I think in the NRL, they still, while they're there, they want to be that big intimidator. As soon as the ball's kicked off, I cannot wait for whoever it is that kicks off to one of those, and then the other one is up there first up, putting the hit on to display who's the one tonight. Like I'm looking back at that Sam Burgess sort of versus Sam Burgess up against James Graham battle from that grand final, Mark, where they just went through each other at each other. And obviously Sam Burgess had that. I hope no injuries happen. I just hope that's a fair income battle. I feel like they're both going to get in a bit of trouble here. I think there's a sin bin for each almost guaranteed in this game, just because I think emotions will bubble over. But in a way, I feel like whoever wins this battle, their team gets on the back of them and wins. I think that's how big this battle is.
Oh yeah, I think this is where the game's going to be won. And the saying forwards win finals, backs determined by how much, I think is a real true saying for this final, 100%. I think it's a lot more than Nas and JWH, but I'll talk about that in a minute. The key between those two matchups is who's the one that's going to be able to keep their head in line. Who's got the discipline? Because I think that sin bin's going to be what breaks the matchup. So if there's a sin bin between one of those two, that the game's going to open up. And what I'm hoping as a Storm fan is that all the boys have gone to Nas and said, Nas, I want you to run through JWH. I want you to run through every single one of those guys. But when you defend, don't do anything stupid. Don't just keep your head into line, keep the discipline. That's the key, right? So the key of this game is going to be who can fire that intensity but keep the discipline up. Roosters did that last week, right? They trained really hard. We all saw Lenu's interview about how they trained and what happened during the week in the lead up to what that game was about. Now, apparently they've done the same thing this week. But can they do it 2 weeks in a row in a prelim in a whole different kettle of beast down in Melbourne? And the key is whether they can keep that discipline. And and whoever it is that doesn't do that is going to cost their team big time. And I really hope that doesn't. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall in the rest rooms this week to see what they're saying and what they're doing. I hope they allow the physicality, but officiate the game consistently, because they're going to have to go up to them and say, boys, we get it. We understand where this is going, but I hope this is not a ref's influence in this game.
We don't want it to become a wrestling match, I think, is the polite way of saying this, because there's very much a big possibility with the history of both sides, and I guess how good they are at it. That could be a huge possibility to win the ruck, to win the dominance, and go from there. But anything else you want to talk about in regards to this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, there's heaps. Like in terms of that forward matchup, like you've got. There's been talk that they're thinking maybe they sit Nas to start off with and bring Welsh. And I like that. And the reason why they want to do that is because the Roosters got freaking a mad dog in Lenu coming off the bench. And I think that's a nice matchup between the two of them, Nas and Lenu. And somehow we've got to stop that. So I like that talk. But I think this forward battle is more than... Pardon? You hate it because you're a spectator and you want to see the two of them bash each other.
But no, I also, let me hit you back with this then. We spoke about last week the start of this week in the review, and about how last week when we spoke about the Roosters one, Lenu, there was all this talk about Lenu and they didn't start him. He just sat there on the bench for that first 20-minute period and the game sort of drifted away slowly. Again, this week we've seen a lot of talk, whether they've brought into it or not, I don't know, but I think they're natural. Him and Rio Hargreaves are just natural. They want to go at it. They don't care. So I feel like just get them both starting and say, go for it. You want to make sure you got your best foot forward at the start of the game to get onto that front foot as early as you can. It's an 80-minute game, 100%, but I think you start your big forward leader and say, go for 20 minutes, show me what you can do.
Oh, yeah, 2 weeks ago when they got smoked by Penrith in the first 20 minutes and we both said, what the hell were they doing with Lenu against his old club, 100%. But I think this is a different circumstance. Like last week, they still kept Lenu on the bench. And I think, wasn't it, Lenu still started off, and they blew Manly off the park. This week is another different story again. I think Robinson needs to be able to have quick adjustments, because if that happens again, Lenu needs to get back. I do agree with you. I would love to have Lenu on the field at the same time as JWH. God, that'd be scary. As a Storm fan, I hope that doesn't happen, because I don't. That's scary. And how do we stop that? That's when you then can have your Manus playing off the back. That's when Connor Watson becomes much harder to defend. That's when Teddy is almost unstoppable. If you had those two just beating up on the lines and breaking those lines and drawing in 3 and 4 blokes over and over and over again, it just wears your toll down.
I'm also, I want to make sure Nelson Solomona starts ahead of Walsh, because personally, if I'm looking at it with an open book here, if I know that Maria Hargraves and I've got a mental blank, Lindsay Collins starting, I don't think Walsh and Josh King can handle that. I don't think they're that intimidating forward pack, where at least if I know I've got Nelson out there, he can step up to Jared and go, mate, pipe yourself down here, mate. Just this is my home ground. This is my stadium. You got to know where you are at the moment. And that won't affect Jared. We all know that he'll laugh at that. He won't care. But just that type of gladiator type atmosphere and storyline, I think, is something that if I was Bellamy, and I'm not Bellamy, Bellamy knows a lot more than me, but I'd want my big enforcer out there from the word go.
Yeah, it makes sense. They've named him. So, they've put him in that spot already. I also do agree, though, that I also like the bit of a change up in the play of having him come off the bench if Lenu does. So I can see that. I can see that tactical play. And I like that too. I think also it may also be a bit of a discipline conversation. And that they're talking, Nas may not be able to keep it together if he does have to go forceful hand to hand with JWH. So I think there's a bit of tactical play in that too.
Anything else? You got anything else for us?
Yeah, well, I've got, do you want to talk about first tries, predictions, that sort of stuff? I'm pretty keen to.
Yeah. Give us, let's get into the prediction side of things before we move on. Who are you predicting? Give us your first try scorer, your winner, and I guess a margin, and a man of the match.
Sure. I think this is going to be a lot closer than that I'm reading. A lot of people are saying a lot closer than, even like our one truly Jesse, who's a Roosters fan, sort of is predicting. Whilst I sit there and I can answer that, I think across the park we've got a better team. I think we've got some better stars. I think we're rested. We're healthier. I think the Roosters showed last week that they're still freaking good. And if they can match that intensity of what they've got, this game's going to be very close. I've got the Storm winning. The Storm fan in me has got Storm winning at home. I think the week off is really, really, really a benefit in the NRL. And I'm sort of referring to what the AFL do at the end of the season with a week off, because I did read somewhere recently that the NRL are contemplating doing something like that, or have been asking that question. And I think I hate that. I really hate that. The week off after the season. But the week off here, when you've earned it, is absolute benefit. So the Storm are coming off that. So I've got the Storm with all those variables winning. I think it's very close. I've got it 26-22 still. So I still think it's a within a try game. I've got first try scorer Xavier Coates, 8 tries in his last 4 games he's had against the Roosters. So I've got Xavier Coates for first try. And we've got a nice juicy matchup here with a couple of game celebrations. So Harry Grant's playing 100 games. And then you've got Spencer Leniu playing 100 games. So I've got Harry Grant for man of the match.
Oh, we didn't even mention him, and that's the ace up their sleeve when you know they've got Harry Grant in and around the ruck doing what he does best. I've got the Storm in a very, very tight one. I've got the Storm by 1 in Golden Point. So I think this game will go the distance and some. I'm really looking forward to this one. There is a huge part of me that wants to say the Roosters, like, I actually think they are right in this, right into their eyeballs. I think the class of those halves will get the Storm home in a very tight one. I've got Warbrick on the other side to have the first try. And then I've got man of the match. I've got Jerome Hughes, who I think it'll be a battle between, I guess, the two Dalian favourites. And I think Jerome Hughes will just put the icing on the cake, kick that field goal, and get himself a man of the match as well. The next game, if there's a balloon in here, you can deflate it a little bit because it feels a little bit like that. But we're going to try and sell it. We're going to try and sell this game because there's a plenty out there, and we may be included with this when you find out at the end, but that think Penrith will just wipe the floor with this Sharks team. That could be very disrespectful. That could be very true. Who knows? We're going to try and talk about, I guess, what we did just then and discuss some of the matchups out there. The first one to me,
Joel, the only important game on Saturday that's happening is Go Swannies.
Mate, we need one podcast so we don't talk about it. We're not an AFL podcast. So I apologize, guys. I'm with you here. This is not on. I'm more looking forward to this game, to be honest, in the AFL Grand Final. Anyway, I forgot that was even on. I just want to watch Katy Perry sing "Kissed a Girl" or something, whatever she sings. So, this matchup, it's hard to look into this and find matchups that actually are even on paper, and that's not being disrespectful. That's just the class of what the Penrith Panthers are. And straight away, I talk about the spine, who I think, honestly, the spine, we talk about the forwards, the spine are just as important because they get the team around the park, they get into point A, point B, etc. You look at them on paper, Edwards, Luai, Cleary, and Mitch Kenny up against Kennedy, Hines, I'm going to name it 6 because he will be playing 6, Trindle, and Blake Brayley. So Blake Brayley has had a tremendous season, no denying that. Braden Trindle had a great game on the weekend. The thing I find funny is, he was good on the weekend, but he hasn't been sensational all year either. He has had a few okay games, he's had a few great games, and he's had a few very below average. And then obviously his misdemeanor throughout the year as well didn't help. So he hasn't always been just a star all of a sudden. Nico Hines has been well below par. We've said that a number of times. I need to bash the bloke one more time. And Will Kennedy, I don't know. He's reliable. He'll do a job, but he's up against Dylan Edwards, one of the form fullbacks in our game at the moment. So that battle straight away, you look at it and you go, okay, Braden's had a great game on the weekend. Nico played his part, but there is that many levels up right now that they're about to go. It's not funny because they're not coming up just against Nathan Cleary. They're coming up against Jerome Luai, who I think has had his best year of his career as well. And he's not just been a 5'8", he's also learnt to control the game as well. So he's got that part of his game down pat as well. So that straight away, Trav, you feel that's got the writing on the wall in itself.
Yeah. I mean, it's just bleak. It's bleak looking over that Sharks list opposed to the Penrith list. I struggle to really look at a matchup in this and go, yeah, I can clearly say that the Sharks play is better than the Penrith side. Like, I can't. I mean, there's dudes in here that I can look at it and go, oh yeah, I think he's better. Like, the only one that I'm confident that I can talk about, there's 2 that I'm confident I can say in terms of their matchup are better. Confident that Brayley is better than Mitch Kenny, but Mitch Kenny's no scrub. But I can confidently say Brayley's better than him. I can confidently say that Nicker is better than Garner. And geez, that's not downplaying that Garner's a scrub, because I actually think Garner's had a really good year and he's played that role nicely in that Panthers position in the second row. But he's no scrub. But yeah, they're probably the only 2 that I can confidently go, I think he's better. I think he owns that matchup. I look along this park, like Dylan Edwards is miles above, even an injured, hampered looking Dylan Edwards is miles above Will Kennedy. And I think you're right. Will Kennedy across the year is a middle of the pack. Like, if you can't get an elite fullback in your Dill Edwards, Tedesco, Walsh, Ponga likes, you wouldn't be disappointed to have Kennedy on your team, but he doesn't compare. And then you look at the rest of that spine, like you said. Jerome Luai and Cleary versus Trindle and Hines, and based off form. Like, you're laughing at any matchup that Jerome Luai and Cleary are playing against, like, let alone playing against that. Trindle had a great game last week. But what I talk about, and my issue with Trindle has been this year, is that that's few and far between. And whilst he's been pretty good in parts where he's had Atkinson beside him, he's not been very good with Hines beside him. And Hines, we know, is, unfortunately, as much as I love him, as much as we all love him, has been pretty bad this year. And he's, in our opinion, lucky to have his spot. So those two have to have blinders, right? Nicho Hines needs to be like the Dally M Nicho Hines, and Trindle needs to play another step above what he did last week. And I don't think they can do that at all.
One of the bright lights for the Sharkies is obviously Britton Nakora, who is, for mine, one of the best hole running back rowers we've got in the competition. But the problem he's going to find this weekend, he's up against probably the best defensive outfit over the last 4 years. I'm not just talking about this year. Over the last 4, they've just time and time again just been so hard to crack. So it's sort of like a bit of a yin and yang sort of battle, because you got this guy that loves to hit the hole, loves to poke his nose through and get to the line, but then you've got this team that's not going to allow him to do that. So how patient will him and Hines be compared to that defensive wall that we know will just sit there and defend not just for 80 minutes? I reckon if you asked them to, they'd probably do it for 160 minutes. They just wouldn't stop. So it's a funny battle, because I really, really rate Nakora's skill with that. But when you're up against this juggernaut, it just feels like, even though he's one of the best, I don't think he can still crack it.
No, and it's not going to be on him. It can't be. And the only way Nicker is going to be able to have a good game is if across the park and all 13 players are disciplined, so they don't give stupid penalties away, and they keep their errors down. And because that's what Penrith are waiting for. Penrith want to grind you and grind you and grind you. And as you said, they're just happy. It'll just be rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. They'll just grind you until you finally make a stuff up. And they're happy to do that. They're not, whilst they've got amazing attacking players and skillful dudes, like incredibly skillful players, and they'll have that shining light in that moment that does that. But that's not Penrith's game style. Penrith's game style is to grind you and grind you and grind you until you make the mistake, you lose field position, and then we'll burn you, right? And then that's when we'll bury you, and then we'll get the try, hey, and we'll do it again, and then we'll run it. We'll run it 70 meters. We'll kick it in. You might get it then, and we'll stop you by the 50. You'll do a shitty kick, and they'll just keep going until you finally do it again, and you make that error. You do that problem. You give away the silly penalty because you're just so tired. You're just having to go at it over and over and over again. The question that I've got for the Sharks is, how do they keep their discipline in check, and how do they keep their errors down? Because if they do what they did last week, in terms of their completion rate and in terms of their errors, they're in big, big trouble, right?
They'll lose by 50.
It'll be a freaking cricket score, man. Like, it'll be horrible. So they can't do what they did last week, but they can't sit there in the grind either. They're not good enough to match Penrith in that grind. So they're going to, in my opinion, they've literally got to play the game of their life. They've got to be able to figure out how they can keep those errors and the discipline in check, but they've got to attack. You have to attack over and over and over again. And the best way to get to Penrith is to shift the ball. You have to go from sideline to sideline. And then you have to make sure that you get that at least 60 meters on every set. And you're playing 5 tackles over and over again and putting them into the position where you've got field position so that you can attack, because that's then how Nickera can break the lines. And until then, Nickera won't be able to break that line. He's not going to be able to do that. As good as he is, and as you said and have rated, I don't think he's the best, but he's bloody good. But he can't do that. He can't break those lines if Penrith are winning the field position, if they're not having to attack, because they're not tired. The only way to be able to get Nicker to do that is to get them tired. The only way to do that is to make sure they get repeat sets in defense, and they're over and over and over again. That's when Nicker can be a monster.
There's one guy in this we haven't spoken about yet, and it's Mr. Consistency. It's Mr. 8 out of 10 every week, no matter what, and that's at a minimum. He's consistent. He's often above an 8 out of 10 game. It's Isaiah Yeo. He's absolutely huge for this lineup. I know you're very big on him. I'll let you go first with this one. Just how much and how critical is Isaiah Yeo to this team?
He's their number one. Like, Cleary is amazing. We all know that he's the best player in the competition, like by far and above. But this system needs Isaiah Yeo, and the way that they play needs Isaiah Yeo, right? And the reason why Cleary and Luai are so good is because they have Isaiah Yeo. And the best thing about Isaiah Yeo is that he literally plays the full 80 minutes. He gets his 40 tackles, and he breaks lines and runs lines. And he doesn't always break those lines, but he might get 8 to 10 meters on his carry, but he draws 2 and 3 dudes in with him, and then he offloads. And he does that sort of stuff, which then allows and releases Cleary and Luai to get that quick play of the ball or to get that offload and go. And then that's when Cleary and Luai are just unstoppable. He's their MVP. And I think if you look down the every year past, Isaiah Yeo for the last 5 years, because 5 years ago they were in the grand final, they lost to the Storm. It's on the back of how bloody good Isaiah Yeo is and how consistent he is and what he can do, because he literally gets that. He makes that run. He attacks that line. And then he's just got such good ability to be able to make a quick pass before he gets to tackle after he's drawn someone, or get a good offload off, or just draw in 2 to 3 people because he runs such a good line through a gap that, 2 or 3 are having to get up quickly and off the tackle. And then you've got Cleary grabbing the ball off the player the ball, or Luai grabbing the ball off the player ball. Have a look at that, and that'll be a really intriguing thing for people that don't watch the game like we stupidly do. And have a look when Isaiah Yeo makes that run, how often it's not the hooker, Kenny, even in years past, Carousel and that, taking that play of the ball. Often you'll find that when it's Isaiah Yeo, it's actually Luai and Cleary that get that play of the ball after run. Have a look at that. I've noticed that myself. Just because it's just what he can do. That's just how dominant he is. And he doesn't break you down with flashy stuff.
Yeah. The hugely concerning part of this is he becomes the most capped Penrith Panther on the weekend, Isaiah, and he means a hell of a lot to this playing group. He's held very, very highly by every single player there, every single coaching staff, every single person involved with that club. So no doubt in my mind, if the Sharks hoping to catch them on an off day, that will not be happening. They'll be very much up for this game, and Isaiah Yeo will be very much up for this game, and it will be closer to a 10 out of 10 game than it will be an 8 out of 10 game. To counter that, I guess the Sharkies have a guy who dead set tries his ass off every week. He looks like before he even runs out onto the field, he's already played a game of rugby league, and that's Cam McInnes. He's just an absolute warrior, a soldier on the field, and what he puts his body through, I am just in amazement of. I don't know how the Sharkies don't feed off him more. If I was playing the game and I had someone like him doing what he does on a weekly basis, I would be doing everything I could to make sure I got up to that level, and he inspired me. He's definitely that inspiration player. He's a different player to Isaiah. He doesn't probably do the ball playing as much, but he's a defensive workhorse. He's very crucial to the Sharkies on a defensive side of things. In saying that, I don't know if he's definitely not enough to hold Penrith by himself, but he's a start, I guess, for the Sharks.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, I love Cam McInnes, but I love players like him. Just that workhorse dude who just doesn't care about himself. It's everything about the team that he plays for. It's everything about everyone else. And I'll do my job, and I'll do whatever the hell you tell me to do, and I'll do it at a bloody 150%. A Ruben Cotter is exactly the same. Like, that's why I love Ruben Cotter so much, because he's like that. You're right. In terms of attacking play, you don't get a lot from him. He's had 1 try assist for the year and 2 line breaks. So he's not that type of dude, right? But he is a defensive machine. So here's something for you. He's had 988 tackles made at a rate of 96.6. He doesn't miss.
Incredible.
It's incredible, right? It's just a freak. He averages 110 running meters, which I think is pretty low for a dude who plays as many minutes as he does, and the role that he plays. But yeah, I think he has to have a blinder, and he has to do a little bit more on the attacking end this game. But again, he's only going to be able to do what his team allows him to do. And if he has to play on the back foot, he'll get 60 tackles this week coming on 10 runs. Like it's So it's got to be another team effort for Cam McInnes to be able to help that team play and win or be competitive.
The final point I want to talk about here, and it's on a Penrith side of things. Surprisingly, it's the Bash brothers. It's James Fisher-Harris up against Moses Leota. They just continue to do this, and this is their last dance, their last time together for that partnership, the pairing. They've been so good. What are your thoughts around them?
I talked about Cam McInnes being that dude that you'd love to have on your team because he's team first, takes the hits, puts his face in front of a fight. Like that's what you want, right? Well, Penrith have 2 of them in Leota and Fisher-Harris.
And they're mean guys.
And you look at them and you literally be like, no, you scare me. And when they're sitting there beside you, it's scary. They're guns, man. They're so good to watch. And again, like Leota is just that tank, just that, the last time I look at Leota and I get bells of 2022 Junior Paulo. I looked at the Junior Paulo sort of tank. Leota's reminds me of that, particularly this year, so much. I've sat there on the couch watching him, and I've said to my wife when I've watching him, that reminds me of him so much. And Fisher-Harris, we're all scared of. We can all sit there and say JWH or Warrior Hargraves is a scary man. I'm a bit more scared when the scary eyes come from Fisher-Harris. I'd hate to see him in a dark alley hole. My gosh. But again, like I said, there's 2 of them, and there's the Bash brothers who literally do not care about their bodies and their lives. They do whatever they can for that Penrith team, and geez, it goes a long way to setting them up. I think you've gone on a bit of a point that I wanted to touch on, so I hope you don't mind me jumping in here. But Penrith have won 3 in a row, right? They're going for a 4th in a row, and they've made the last 4 grand finals and are looking for the 5th one this year. Sometimes you do have to look for as much motivation as you can. And a team that's done that, they've got to look for the motivation. And I think the motivation this year for them has been that, they've got these big guys that they love, that have been their bread and butter, have been there since day dot, that are leaving. As you said, Fisher-Harris is going. You've got Luai going. You've got Taruva going. Like these are all. Taruva not so much. He's only the last couple of years, but Luai and Fisher-Harris have been the bread and the lifeblood of this club for the last 2 years. And Penrith, as good as they are, you're still looking for that little bit of added motivation, that thing that you just need. It's not so much now we're going for that. We're going for that premiership, guys. We're fighting for that premiership. They've won 3 of them. So now it's about let's do it for him and that next man up sort of mentality. I think that's really scary as a Storm fan and as a rugby league fan of anyone that's left. That's really scary. And as the Sharks team, I think that's a conversation that subtly people are having in the back of their minds. And I think that's what Fitzgibbon as a coach and that's talking about is how do we limit that motivation they've got for these guys and how do we stop it? Because by God, that's scary.
The thing is, I don't know if you can. That motivation level is all of a sudden at an all-time high. Cleary's back. They're just looking very, very strong. All of a sudden as well, there was a lot of doubters out there, even throughout the year. But now everything's sort of come together at the perfect time of the year. And you just sit back, you look at the lineup, you go, wow, okay, wow. All right, let us know your predictions. Who wins? First try scorer, your score line, and also your man of the match.
Geez, we were able to talk about that game a lot more than we thought we might have.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, for the NRL fans, I think this is going to be a landslide. Penrith easily. Cleary and some of the boys end up sitting out the last sort of 20 minutes, I reckon. I think it's a 46-10 drubbing as a minimum. I think this is a landslide, unfortunately. I think the Sharks played their match last week and they didn't even play very well. I don't think they've got anything that they can combat against them. We've spoken about things that they have to do. I don't think they can. You can't. I just can't see them limiting their errors. I think they'll just end up getting frustrated, and so then the discipline kicks in. I don't think Trindle and Hines can do it again this week. I don't think Penrith let them. I think it's going to be a huge loss. I also think there's big mental demons for the Sharks off the back of that big drubbing that they had during the year against Penrith. So I think there's just everything's going against them. So I predict a 46-10 minimum. I think it's actually going to be worse than that, but I'm going to put it down to that. And I've got first try. I've got Toto, which I've actually put money on that. So I've got Toto for first try. And what was the other one? Man of the match.
Yeah.
Who's going to play most of the minutes? Because I think it's going to be a tough one. I'm going to give it to Luai.
Yep. Don't mind that. Don't mind that at all. I got Penrith winning. I'm going to go slightly more respectable on the scoreline, but I think Penrith will run away with this early on and just maybe go back a few gears and get ready for next week. I'm going to go Penrith 34. Sharkies 6. I think the Sharkies are going to really struggle to score any points against this Penrith Panthers team. First try scorer, I've got Taru. Oh, no, sorry. I'm going to go forward. I'm going to go Luke Garner as my first try scorer.
Put money on that. There. That'll be paying big.
Yeah, I'll put a couple of little dollars on there. Gamble responsibly, everyone. And then my man of the match, Isaiah Yeo. He's big. It's a big milestone game for him. I think he'll be up for it. And we've already spoken about how crucial he is to this Penrith Panthers team and how they perform. And I think he'll have his hands all over everything that they do Saturday night. But that's it, guys. That's the preview done and dusted. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Once again, you got a lot of great reviews from last week's. Again, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the heart, little bell notification. Make sure you get notifications for all our podcasts. Share it around. Tell your friends and family. We've got plenty of stuff coming in the off season. A lot of player interviews coming your way as well, which is a great time. So make sure you hit those notification buttons and get some love around the page. But Trav, thank you once again. Big week for us podcast-wise on the page. Got through it, and now we get to sit back and enjoy some great rugby league.
Can't wait, man. Can't wait. Very excited for tomorrow. Very nervous, but very excited for tomorrow. And look, in all honesty, I'm keen for Saturday. Hopefully the Swannies win, and then I can sit down with a few sly little whiskies and watch a nice NRL game.
I'll give you one. I'll say good luck to the Swannies, and I hope the halftime entertainment is as good as they've paid out for it to be. Good night, guys. Enjoy your footy on the weekend, and good luck to all 4 teams